let's start. Okay, so
Before we get into it, can we talk about how difficult it is to make it through a chapter of Begat?
because who are all these people?
It's the most boring part of the Bible. Every time I see one, because it's also in like, I think Exodus, I'm just like, y'all
There's
could
a
have
few
just drawn a
times.
picture.
There's a
Draw
few
us
times.
a picture. I mean, the extended one, like some of them are just so long. It's pages and pages of Begats. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember this. I'm not going to know how to put these people together.
Or you're
Somebody should
like,
have
do
made
I
a
even
picture
have
for
to?
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all it's the most stressful part of the Bible. Every year when I'm like, oh, I'm going to read the Bible this year, I'll start and then I'll get to those begats and the whole, like,
You're
just
like,
the whole year.
you're like, no, thank you. I think there's a long list too, and like if you ever read like First and Second Kings and stuff,
Yeah.
they just be going through. You're like, okay, now did we have to, but they
I mean, I
recorded
get it.
everything,
He's
and those
full.
were,
Yeah.
But the genealogy, it really is important though. Even though we want to skip it, we shouldn't skip it because there's so
Right.
many good nuggets in there.
There are good nuggets.
They're in
And
there
I
for a reason.
honestly, but here's the thing, I would have never caught them if we weren't doing this. Like, if I wasn't specifically studying the Bible and looking up who these people are, I wouldn't have caught, like, wow, this was in his lineage. Like, a lot of
Mhm.
imperfection.
Yeah.
You expect nothing but greatness the whole way from Abraham on down, but it's
If you were
definitely
being
not.
honest, in the Bible, it shouldn't come as a shock in the genealogy of Christ that these are full of nonsense, crazy people, because you just read the Bible, everybody is flawed. Like, quite literally.
Right.
Even Abraham was lying a little bit sometimes, and God was like, I ain't tell you lie about that, stuff like nobody's perfect. Abraham, he
Yeah.
had a lot of faith, but he still did some stuff that he wasn't supposed to. We're gonna go through it right now, actually. Yeah, let's just get into
Okay.
it. I will say the genealogy is broken into 3 segments. So you have Abraham to David, then you have David to the Babylonian exile, and you have exile to Christ. I won't bore you guys with the Babylonian exile, but like I said, there was always going to be imperfection in Jesus' lineage, because if you read the Old Testament, the Israelites consistently are like messing up, hence the Babylonian exile. Well, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, one day. So, why would Matthew include the genealogy in the beginning? Matthew includes the genealogy to demonstrate that Jesus had a legitimate claim to be the Messiah, the son of David, and heir to the throne, because they were looking for the right person to become it. And, the rabbis and the Jewish people, they studied a lot, so they were really looking for certain signs that he was the Messiah. So this would be why. So I
Okay.
started off, actually. Did you want to add on to that? I wanted to start off because I saw a reference when I read this, why it was included, and it goes back to the Old Testament in 2 Samuel 7:12-16, and I want to read it real quick because this is when the Lord God, our God, makes a covenant with King David about, and I'm just going to read it to you so you can understand. And it's about Jesus. This is God talking. When your time comes and you rest with your fathers, I will raise up after you your descendant, who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. Now, this is the part where I was like, huh? It said, when he does wrong, I will discipline him with a rod of men and blows from mortals. Now, I don't think Jesus ever did anything wrong, but I'm guessing when he took on our sin, that's that, because he did get beaten by mortals. But my faithful love will never leave him, as it did when I removed it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. Your house and kingdom will endure forever forever, and your throne will be established forever. That, from what I read, that is talking directly about Jesus. God telling David, hey, from you, my son is coming through you. Yes. And another fun fact, Jesus' genealogy is only preserved in the Gospels because the Romans destroyed all of the Jewish, what's the word I'm looking for? Their records, their genealogical records. It burns
Look
out the
at you.
temple. Yeah, well, I knew that the temple was burned down at some point because the Christians were getting like persecuted, killed. There was a lot going on after Jesus died, and they burned that temple to the ground. It's been destroyed a few times, actually. Yeah, it was destroyed in the Old Testament too. Yeah, real bad.
All right, we're all gonna get to where Wiggy is in her Bible knowledge, so because I'm like, oh, okay.
Look, I never. Look, let me tell you guys. It's only I know a lot about certain things. I don't know a lot about a lot of things. The Bible, I'm no expert. There's people who I look up to that are experts. Like, I won't name them, but They are experts. I want to be
Right.
like them when I grow up. So I'm just on my way. But this is like my special interest, so I just get really into it.
So let's get into the actual genealogy.
Yeah, so the first genealogy is going to be from Abraham to David. As we said, the genealogy does not shy away from including these are perfect people. Already noted on Abraham. Like, I feel like Isaac was pretty chill. He didn't do much. But Jacob, let's get to Jacob. He's the person who followed the 12 tribes. He was a liar and a deceiver. If everybody probably knows the Bible story of Jacob and Esau when he stole the birthright and the stew. You remember that?
Basically.
Kids. We learned that when we were
But
kids.
yeah,
It's
I
like
feel like I heard it when I was a kid, but it's not one that's repeated all the time.
true that, but then when you think about it when you're an adult, you're like, he really messed his brother over. He stole his whole birthright. He lied. He fooled his dad because his dad was like,
Give a
Brian,
synopsis of the story.
the story, okay, basically, Jacob and Esau are twins, six sons, and Jacob is the second born. And so Esau is like this hairy dude, and he like works in the field, and he's really Isaac's favorite son. But his wife, what was his wife's name? I'm drawing a blank, but his wife, her favorite son was Jacob, right? And she also was a liar. They basically plotted on Isaac, who was old and blind, who could not see. So she made him these clothes that were like hairy. He put them on his arms while Esau was in the fields. And she had Jacob bring Isaac his favorite soup. And for some reason, it was like when you gave him the soup, it was like, give me the birthright, basically. Or basically, it was like, I won't give you the soup until you give me the birthright. And Isaac was like, whatever. He thought it was Esau or something. It was basically like they tricked him. They tricked him into thinking he was giving the birthright to his son. And it wasn't. And then later, Isaac actually figured it out and he was all like sad. But apparently, once you give it to him, it's over and it's done.
Take backs.
Yeah, that's so then Jacob actually had to leave home. He had to run away because Esau was going to kill him. Yeah, it's really dramatic. Genesis got a lot of drama in it. Y'all should really read that. But that's basically the synopsis is he lied. He stole a birthright that was not his. But all the 12 tribes of Israel come from Jacob, the deceiver. He was also very hard-headed. In Genesis, he wrestles with God. He literally wrestles with him because he's so hard-headed. And God has to hit him in his hip to like disable him. But yeah, that's Jacob. He hard headed. He got multiple baby mamas. Probably about 4 baby mamas, I would say. He had 2 wives, 2 or 3 concubines, and 12 sons, and a daughter. They don't talk about the daughter a lot, but he also had a daughter. At least one daughter that they named. Something tragic happened to her. After Jacob, what's interesting is it says that Jacob fathered Judah and his brothers. Judah is the tribe that Jesus comes from. That's why they call him the
Yes.
Lion of Judah. No? Yes. Judah fathered Perez and Zerah by Tamar. So now we're going to go into that story.
That's like, okay, so the story of Tamar, I won't say it angers me, but just
Tell me,
so, okay,
tell me
so
your
let's
thoughts
let's
because
go
you
through the
read it.
story.
Yeah.
Let's go through the story. Okay, so Tamar is Judah's daughter-in-law. She's married to, is it or Er? How do you say it?
She was married to, I said
Sorry, I said too. She was married to First thing, he died because he was wicked.
And it doesn't say why he was wicked. It just says he was
That
wicked.
is it. Okay? That's all we got now. When you learn this Bible, you can go all up, down, and through, and many people are given the opportunity to repent.
Yeah.
Whatever did was
It was too
so
much.
wicked that God was swift and decisive, and you ain't gonna tell the rest.
All
We
it
need to
said,
know.
it said was was evil in the Lord's sight and he put him to death. I said, what?
That was it.
What happened?
What happened? What is the story? How evil was it? What was it that got that swift decision from God that was like, no, you, God?
And what's crazy is this how you know that God is for all people, not just the Israelites, because even though, those were his chosen people, but Tamar was not an Israelite woman. She was like a Canaanite. They was all marrying foreign women, which they were not supposed to do. But it was interesting that he would kill his own people, basically. Like, you're so evil that I have to get rid of you.
Yes. Okay. So I was already blown right there because we don't have any backstory.
No,
Then, back in those times, if a man and a woman were married and they did not have a child and the man died, the woman was to marry the man's brother.
Yes.
And then their child would be seen as taking the initial brother's lineage.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So dies. Judah's like, okay, I got another son. Here's Onan.
Poor Onan.
Poor Onan. Onan said if I have a baby with this lady, it's not even really going to be my lineage. It's going to be my brother's lineage.
Who was evil? Who
So
was evil?
then he was like, I'm not going to get her pregnant. He spilled his seed on the floor.
Game on point.
Full out game on 1,000. But God is mad dead. What?
Disobedience.
So yes, Onan dies because he's disobedient. This is
No,
not what I
seriously.
told you to do. And so that was another thing where I'm like, listen, y'all can keep playing around with all these sins, like you just gonna do it for a while, but when you get older, you gonna straighten up.
Yeah.
We don't know. God is swift.
He was very swift. It's like,
Okay.
so basically,
Because I
as
was just blown.
as Mo was saying, yes, Tamar. Basically, we should feel bad for Tamar because I mean, I guess in this day, women are just getting passed around because Tamar
Well,
is
okay.
passed through this family swiftly.
Yes. Okay. So then Judah's like, okay, I'm not about to give you another one of my kids, right? You didn't kill two of them, or two of them have died while with you.
Yeah, how he gonna blame her when you know God is bad that y'all married?
Some
Like,
don't look right. Judah was uncomfortable. He wasn't right. Which I'm like, me too, Judah. I wouldn't have been comfortable either.
yeah, he probably was
So
like
then
on the side of caution because his third son wasn't even old enough to get married yet. What was the third son? Shayla or something? What was the third son's name?
I don't think I have his name.
It was
It
kind of like a girly name.
We didn't have to even get to him. So Judah was like, no, I'm not giving you my third son. So Tamar's like, okay, bet. She poses as a prostitute and Judah goes and sleeps with her. Judah wakes up the next morning, looks at Tamar and was like, that deserves a goat. That's goat level. That was goat level. This is what cracked me up about it.
That was her payment. I will
Judah
get a
was,
goat.
it was goat level, okay? Not rabbit. Like, this was some goat level. He's like, all right.
Don't miss the part of why she even went out there to do that to him. It was a plot. It wasn't just, oh,
Right.
I'm gonna go sleep with him. She saw the
Right.
youngest son was of age finally, and yet we not married yet. So what's up? What's going on? She said, okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna take off my widow clothes. I got you. Don't worry. I'm gonna go cover my face. I'm gonna sit where I know you gonna be at. And I know you a little horn dog. So it's not gonna be hard to do.
Right. Exactly. Judah wasn't going to resist the temptation.
At
So
all.
he's like, I'm going to go home.
He didn't even try. He didn't even try. It was
I'm going to go
quick.
home. I'm going to get my servant to send you a goat. So she's like, wait, how do I know you're actually going to come back? Like, you got to leave something here. It was like, what is it? Cloak, shaft, seal cord, and staff. Seal cord and staff, which is basically like phone, credit card. So he's like, okay, cool. He leaves. She goes and hides, right?
I think she just like goes back to their camp. I think she just like goes back to the camp.
She sends the servant back with the goat. The goat is like, I mean, the servant is like, ain't nobody here. We know you ain't have no goat level. Like, like you tripping. Ain't nobody here. So they're like, okay, boom, life
There's
goes
no
on.
prostitute who lives here.
Right, exactly. This was a dream, sir, but thanks. So months go by. Judah runs into Tamar and she's pregnant. And he's like, oh, she has committed adultery, set her ablaze, set her on fire. And Tamar's like,
Oh, she said, hold, please.
you want to set me on fire? Sir, y'all want to know who my baby daddy is? Cord, staff, seal.
Yeah, she's like, who these belong to?
Whose are these? These are, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So here's the part that floored me. Judah immediately takes responsibility, is accountable for it, and says, she is more righteous than I. Now I'm reading this as regular me, like, righteous? Is that the word we want to use to describe her?
Yeah, because she was
I can think of a lot of adjectives, but righteous wouldn't have been the one.
I mean, I guess you
In
wouldn't have thought of that act
actuality,
as righteousness, but she was right.
right, exactly. But in actuality, she was the one that was following the Lord's word and what she was supposed to do. So it was like sometimes there was a sentence that I had in here somewhere that it was like sometimes you're just fighting for justice. Sometimes the villain is just trying to make things right by any means necessary.
It was
I'm
any
like,
means because
okay,
she really had
girl.
to devise that little plan. Like, and this is what I also thought about. She knew that he frequented prostitutes because that's how you know to get him.
Yeah,
Like that. Like,
exactly.
so how
So
often,
it wasn't even a
Judah? How
secret.
often were you doing this? Because this happened after. Because I was trying to figure out when I was reading it. I was like, did Judah cheat on his wife? Because was it Tamar like Judah's wife's daughter or something like that?
Ooh,
But his wife died, and then that's when all this happened. Because I was trying to figure out, did he cheat on his wife too? But he probably was already cheating on her if he's known to go get the prostitutes. That's another thing that it's like we're in the genealogy and we haven't even
okay.
got through 3 people and we already got through liars, thieves, prostitutes, and whoremongers. Like, we're
Yeah,
only in
still
the
leading
beginning.
Jesus.
We're,
Still leading Jesus.
we're only in the beginning.
On our way. We're on our way.
We are on our way. But yeah, but Tamar, she ends up having,
The babies that she had, the babies she was pregnant with were Perez and Zerah. There we go.
yes, and she
That's how Judah
Perez.
ended up fathering children with Tamar.
Yeah, and they can you believe that? And twins at that, twins to boot. Dang, that was maybe that was go level. They had twins. They might they were doing their thing, okay? I mean, my
You're
goodness.
stupid.
Yes, his name was Shayla. That's his name. Because I was like, that's kind of a girly name. But Perez is the one that Jesus comes through, not Zerah. Now, what's funny when you go
Yes.
from Perez, after Perez, there were some other names that I don't really recognize that, give me like it jumps off the page. After a few, Perez fathered this person, this person, this person, this person, we get to Boaz. Now, somebody named Salmon, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, fathered Boaz by Rahab. Now, we have another little aside story for you. Who is Rahab? Another prostitute, a real prostitute, actually, because Tamar was like playing prostitute for a day.
Yeah.
Rahab was a
Very
prostitute for
true.
real. Okay. She was a prostitute. You will find her story in Joshua.
Joshua, yep.
In Joshua, the Israelites, again, trying to conquer. This is why people think they should just conquer everything now because they read the Bible out of context. They were conquering the Canaanites because they were in the promised land, but they had to go see, let's go send some spies out first to see what they was going to deal with. Spies went in there so they wouldn't get caught. Rahab, who is a Canaanite woman, don't know God at all, follows false gods. She hides them in her house. Even when they come looking for the spies, she's like, I don't know spies. I never see no spies. So sorry. Can't help you. Now,
Right.
what's funny about this is they don't really give us, I haven't found the story yet of how Rahab ended up. Well, I guess in that story, they take her, before they burn the city down, they take Rahab and her family into the Israelites. So I guess from there, she met her Israelite man, Mr. Salmon, and they had Boaz. Now, if y'all read y'all's Bibles, or you go to church, or you grew up in church, you probably should know or recognize the name Boaz.
Definitely.
If you've been to any kind of single women's conference,
Yeah.
you probably want your Boaz. Not my Boaz. Oh my God. Even though you should be waiting on your
That's so
Naomi. Where's the
true.
Naomi to point out Boaz? You can't have one without the.
My goodness. That's so
Yes.
true.
Yeah, you need your Naomi to talk about a Boaz. Anyway, so that's who Rahab is, right? So who would have known that Rahab was going to give birth to this very righteous man? Now, Boaz was a very good man, as far as we know, as whatever they wrote about him. And he had money. So Rahab married into some money too. Go ahead, Rahab. Rahab came up, baby. And you can read that story in Joshua 6, if listeners are wondering. Now, Rahab's son was Boaz, right? Who ended up with Ruth, who also is not an Israelite. She is a Moabite. Ruth left her people. Ruth was married to, basically, I'll tell y'all this story too. Naomi, plus you need to find you a Naomi. Naomi was married, I forgot what her husband's name was, but basically she had some sons. And then her sons married these two Moabite women. Because I forgot, I guess they had left their home. I could be wrong. Y'all could correct me in the comments. But basically, they all died. The husband died. The sons died. It's like hard times. Definitely hard times out there for women in that time because if you don't have a man at that time, you're almost good as dead. Like you need a man for protection, for money, for all the things. So when the people die, Ruth's like, I gotta go back to my people. Like I can't be out here. I gotta go back home. And Ruth is like, Ruth and the other daughter-in-law are there, and Ruth is like, not Ruth. Naomi is like, go back to your people. I'm going this way. Y'all go that way. And the one daughter-in-law goes back. She goes back to Moab. And Ruth is like, nah, I stay with you. I'm going with you. And whoever your God is, also my God. Wow. She's like,
Yeah.
I feel
I
like that's
always thought
right
that
there.
was weird.
Yeah, but that to me, that shows how easy it is to be saved. Like, boom, I choose. I follow
Yeah.
the Lord now. Like, I don't know. So she goes back with her. Of course, they two women still, y'all got to get to work. So Ruth had to go work. And Naomi was like, hey, my boy Boaz in that field, I need you to go in that field. You need to go pick the wheat in that field. You see where Boaz is? That field. He's going to notice you. And then when he sleep, you got to go in there and lay at his feet. Lay there, right on his feet and see what he do. Worked out. He married her. Long story short. But they are in the lineage, right? And then Boaz and Ruth have Obed. Obed is actually King David's dad. So he's kind of important. He had a lot of kids though. David was the
Right.
youngest of like, I forgot how many. But that's the first genealogy. That's where it ends, pretty much. Oh no, wait, no. Obed is not King David's father. Obed fathered Jesse, and Jesse is King David's father. Sorry,
Grandfather.
Jesse.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're
Sorry,
right.
Jesse. Sorry, Jesse. Totally missed you there. Didn't mean to do that. So then you go into so then we go into the second genealogy. What did I think was important from this?
It
Well,
starts out with nonsense.
it starts off with nonsense because it calls out David's adultery right there in the first sentence.
Right there.
So we
As
so
soon
we
as we
know
start.
we have an adulterer in the genealogy. Okay, so what do we down to adulterers now. We had prostitutes, Gentiles, liars. Now we on the adultery and a murderer actually too, because it says David fathered Solomon by Uriah's wife. So we're like, what do you mean
Right.
Uriah's
Yes.
wife? Why is not
The
his
only
wife?
one who doesn't have a name. Everybody else has a
Yeah.
name.
And
And
Uriah's
now
wife is Bathsheba. I don't know why I didn't want to
Bathsheba
write her name. She was a beautiful lady. Yeah, but I think what Matthew was doing there was like, we know her name is Bathsheba,
honoring him.
but she was another person's wife at that time.
We need to make it very clear that y'all know what King David was up to.
He was
From
up to no good, and yeah, like you're right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's tell the story of Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm.
Bathsheba was Uriah's wife.
Yes.
Uriah was in
A
the
soldier.
army, in King David's army.
Yeah.
Uriah goes off to war. Bathsheba
Yes.
is minding her business, taking a bath.
Mm-hmm.
King David sees her and is like, "Bring her to me."
Yes. Which is already creepy. It's given.
And put a word to it.
It's given grape culture. What? Bring her to me, David. What's going on? She didn't ask for this. Where's the consent? There was no consent. That is
So
using
this
your
is
position
very
of
true.
power.
So they sleep together. Bathsheba gets pregnant. King David says, "Snap, I gotta try to bring Uriah home from the war so that they can sleep together and make it seem like this is Uriah's baby."
Yeah.
So they call
Lies.
Uriah, and Uriah's like, "No, like bros before hoes, like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna leave. I'm not gonna leave the other soldiers here till the job is done." And so King David is like, "Dang, okay, well, put him on the front line, kill
Yeah.
him."
Yeah. Yeah. Because he ain't that good of a soldier.
And then after he dies, King David and Bathsheba go on to be together. Now, this is one of the stories that I like because there were 3 punishments that David got for doing this.
Right. And people never talk about that part when they talk about that story.
Exactly.
He had his lesson, trust me.
Trouble would arise in his family. His wives would be publicly taken from him, and Bathsheba's child that she was currently pregnant with would die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he fasted. Oh my God, the story is so sad. When the baby got sick, he was fasting and praying for the baby and on the floor with his clothes torn, ashes on his head, fasting, fasting, fasting. When the baby died, he got up, washed his face, and the servants were like, "Now you all right?" And he was like, like, there's no reason to fast anymore. The baby's dead. It's time to move on with my life. But yeah, I never knew that part. I'm like, I'm like, they got to add that to the sermon.
Well, okay, so the thing about that for me is, and this for me relates to my real life or like the real world. You can forgive someone. God forgave him,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
didn't keep him from seeing those consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. You still got to, yeah. It's like when your mom gives you a whooping, she still love you and she forgive you, but you still got to get this whooping. You still
And
got to
I
get
feel
those
like
10 licks.
life is just not like that. People are like, well, if you forgive me, then everything should be fine.
Nope.
Everything is fine, but we are creating distance, or like there is still some sort of
Yeah.
consequence. Everything doesn't just go back to the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I
And
feel like
there's
people
still
think that
grace in that. Like, yeah, the baby died, but I could have killed you too. We seen how quick God to kill somebody.
exactly.
He could have
Exactly.
Bathsheba. He could have took anybody.
Exactly.
If he took Bathsheba, we wouldn't even have Solomon. Or maybe we would have, but not by Bathsheba. It wouldn't have been the same. And let me tell you something again about David. He did that with Bathsheba. He had other wives already. Bathsheba was not his first wife. He had plenty wives, lots of wives. He was collecting them.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Forgiveness. That was forgiveness for me. I just think everybody needs to reconsider the definition of forgiveness.
No, yeah.
This was a clear, like, you can forgive and still receive your consequences.
And that's really how it should be because that's how you learn. I didn't see David doing that again. We might not even got the Psalms like that if he ain't have to learn a few lessons. Because, baby, he was crying out to God a lot throughout them Psalms. Who's next? Oh, Solomon. We talk about Solomon, his son. Solomon is renowned as one of the wisest men to ever live.
Yes.
But he was not so wise when he went against God's word and I think he had like over 1,000 wives and concubines. It's like a crazy number. It's literally that high. I think it's like 700 wives and like I don't know how many
Let's see.
concubines. Yeah, see if you can give me a real time number. Yeah, I feel like I have it written, or maybe I have it in that Old Testament workbook. But he had a lot of wives, and they were his downfall. Actually, when Solomon started marrying all those foreign wives, that's when the kingdom fell.
Yeah.
Did you find the answer?
Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. 1 Kings 11:3.
Where did he put them all? Where
The
did they
Bible
go?
notes that these relationships ultimately led him away fully following God, as many of his wives brought foreign influences and encouraged him to worship other gods.
Yes, and that's why God didn't want them marrying foreign women because he's like, God, I feel like God knows like whatever your woman doing, you gonna end up doing. She worshiped them
Definitely.
Baal, you go do it too. Like, and that was always, that was always the thing. So, and he had so many influences, 700 wives. And why do you need 300 concubines on top of the wives?
On top.
Doing quite a lot. After that, in the genealogy, we also have Asa and Manasseh. I don't have a story about them per se because I can't remember right now, but I know that they were two of the most horrible kings in Israel's history, like evil. I want to say one of them, and I could be wrong, but I want to say one of them was married to Jezebel. One of these. I could be wrong
Okay,
though,
I looked
but
up
she was
really quick.
married to one of them people.
I looked up really quick because you were like, why would you need all of that? And I was like, why did he need all of them? Okay. It wasn't just about romance, it was heavily tied to political alliances, power, and status. In ancient times, kings often married women from other royal families to secure peace treaties, expand their influence, and strengthen diplomatic ties. By marrying the daughter of a powerful ruler, he ensured alliances that helped stabilize his kingdom and expand Israel's influence.
I understand that, but 700 times is crazy. Israel was not hurting at the time. The temple was literally like built out of gold and jewels and diamonds,
Yeah.
and like everything was gold plated. Like, come on, bro. Like, a few alliances I could see, 5, 10. You did it
700.
700 times. There's not enough. There's too many alliances. You can't even uphold all those alliances.
You can't.
You contradicting yourself with other people at this point.
Right.
How can you what? Like, no, bro. He was just lost in the sauce. But you know what? If he wasn't lost in the sauce, things always have their what we need him for, right? I feel like after he got himself back together, that's how we got Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, which we need. Because that's what he's like in Proverbs, he's telling his son, like, hey, don't follow the wayward woman. Don't follow the lustful woman. Because he already been through it and he know I was wilding, doing the most. And that
Yeah.
was not correct. You always gotta, I guess.
We need more Solomons.
Yeah,
The
please
inside,
teach
the
us.
end part, where you
The
tell your
part where
child not to do what you
the,
did. That part.
please
I
don't,
said it, and then I was
please.
like, no.
Yeah, And then
Okay.
in the second genealogy, you have our honorable mention. I don't have a story about them, but Hezekiah was a good king. So was Josiah, was a great king. I love that name, Josiah. I actually wanted to name him. So from there, we go into the third genealogy, which is from the exile to Christ. This is what I wanted to talk about. Ooh, I have like a little nugget for you guys. There's a problem in the genealogy. Not a problem, but it has to be discussed. I got this from Tony Evans, a commentary. Okay. So it's like problem in the genealogy because I was like, what do you mean? So in the third part, there is a guy named, it says, after the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah fathered Shealtiel.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're like, okay, well, what's the problem there? Right? Because from this third part of the genealogy, this goes to Joseph, right? But we know Joseph is not the biological father of Jesus. God is. So it's like, okay, so but how does Joseph fit in here? Why is he the chosen father? Because he is legally his father. Let's follow me. Okay, so Jeconiah, he is also in the Bible, other parts of the Bible in the Old Testament called Jehoshin or Coniah. In Second Chronicles, I believe he's called Jehoshin, and then in Jeremiah, he's called Coniah, right? But when we say there's a problem, it's like in Second Chronicles and in Jeremiah, God, this guy Jehoshin, Jeconiah, whatever we want to call him, his AKAs, he was an evil person. Whatever he did was so evil. And y'all can go back to Second Chronicles and read what he did. God told him, you will never have kids. Ever. You will never, none will come from you. Nothing. Your line has ended. Okay? It's done.
Interesting though, because he didn't kill him. He just said he wouldn't
Yeah.
procreate.
He killed his line. Well, at least biologically, not legally. Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking he must have started to adopt, or maybe he did what the other people were supposed to do, like use his brother or, or something like that, or a servant, but it was like, this my kids. So in Second Chronicles 36, 8-9, it says, the rest of the deeds of Jehoiakim, the detestable actions he committed, and what was found against him are written in the book of Israel's kings. His son Jehoiachin, which is the guy we're talking about, became king in his place. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. It doesn't say what he did. In Jeremiah 22:24-30, it says, the Lord named Coniah childless, and that none of his descendants would sit on the throne of David or rule Judah. So it's like, how can he be in the lineage if he ain't supposed to have no kids? Yeah, so I wrote in my notes, I was like, how did he father anyone then? Like, how did we get to where we're at? And it says there's no explanation. I was like, maybe he adopted them, or maybe he used, like almost like you said earlier with the brother, like your brother has your baby for you, but it's in your lineage. Maybe he maybe he didn't have a brother, but maybe he used servants, like basically like a surrogate but for men. I don't know. There's no explanation. This is just
Okay,
what Tony Evans
so
talking about.
I just looked this up and it says exactly Jeremiah 20 and 22 and 30, God declares him childless. It doesn't mean that he had no biblical children. In fact, in First Chronicles, his sons are listed, including Shealtiel. Instead, the childless reference is symbolic, meaning that none of his descendants would reign as king.
Okay, I got
So
you.
he had children, but they wouldn't continue the royal line in the traditional sense. No descendant would sit on King David's throne in Judah.
I gotcha. Well, I about to say, what did I write about?
However, God still honored his covenant with David through a different path. Jesus, the Messiah, came from Jeconiah's bloodline, fulfilling God's promise in a spiritual and eternal way, rather than through a physical throne in Jerusalem.
I could have learned in real time. Because I was like, what? Because that would, if you really had been reading, like, what, well, how? See, this is why it's good to study in context, y'all, because what does childish really mean? Because it's like, well, he got kids.
Right.
And it's like, well, did God tell him that after he had already had some kids and then now it's over? Like, it's good to have questions. Good to have questions. Don't be afraid. Hey, we just learned something right here in real time. Like, what? And we probably need to tell Tony Evans too. Like, hey, there's there's another theory, because
Oh my goodness.
because it's like at the end of the day, all this is like studying and really in context, but it's like we weren't there. None of us were there. We're doing our best, with what we got. I love that. Okay. But yeah, so then that brings, what's his face? Joseph. Joseph is in that line. That is why it's like legally he is the father. He's still in that line, but biologically he is not the father of Jesus.
That just explained it. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then I also saw this thing at the inside of my notes. Actually, it's just a little quick aside. It says all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David until exile is 14 generations, and from the exile to Babylon or to the Messiah is 14 generations. And I wonder
14,
I wonder why. Is that important, or is just like, or is that just like not even real? It's just like, I'm just gonna write that because it sounds cool. I mean, I will say in the Bible, I always see like multiples of 3 and 7. So I don't know.
Let's see what it says. This intentional pattern wasn't random. It carried deep symbolic meaning for the Jewish audience. Numerical symbolism in Hebrew. You know this?
No, I'm just saying that's kind of what I just said. I'm like, if you read the Bible, it's always like there's a lot of numbers that mean things to God.
Numbers, letters have numerical value. The name David, written in Hebrew, equals 14 when the letters are added up. By structuring the genealogy in sets of 14, Matthew emphasized Jesus' connection to David, reinforcing that Jesus is the promised messianic king from David's royal line.
Okay. Matthew is very strategic. I actually love that about him. I could tell he had a very analytical mind, because it's giving, like, I'm not gonna put everybody, like, I'm gonna put the most important people that's in these generations, and I'm gonna show like I really thought about this. Like, I'm gonna show 14 each one, so y'all can understand.
That is crazy.
Because, like I said last episode, his audience is mainly Jewish. Because to Gentiles, that means nothing. Who cares? I mean, to us, we're like, oh, I wonder what that means. Like, obviously, that's important because you wrote it. But for the Jewish people, they understood that right away. That's crazy.
Isn't it?
Yes, I like that.
2 things. Brand new, live.
Yeah, live in action. And that's how I want it to be, actually. But yeah, that's the genealogies.